Hello, I was going to go into a detailed examination of all of this that I'm presenting to you, but I decided just to keep it short, otherwise it would have been long-winded and about half an hour's worth of video. So I ask you just to watch this video, read the attachments carefully, and then come to your conclusion, because you will not have sovereignty and you will not have independence. And Mr. Salmon knows this. First up, we have Bernie Madoff. Haha, I hear you say. What has that got to do with the SNP, sovereignty, and independence for Scotland? Well, if you read this and then you carry on through the video and you carry on through the attachments, you'll find out exactly what it has got to do with sovereignty and independence for Scotland, because what we're looking at is a global Ponzi scheme. And once you finish this little lot, you will fully recognise and understand that what Mr. Salmond and the SNP are selling to the Scottish public is a lie.
Yeah, first of all, in that very same interview, Bernie Madoff himself said that the U.S. government was running a Ponzi scheme. So when the person who has run the biggest Ponzi scheme in the history of the world accuses the U.S. government of doing the same thing, we ought to take him seriously.
Douglas Carswell MP in the House of Commons just recently, over the past few months, I think it was perhaps late last year, introducing a banking bill for the reform of the banks and the reform of the fractional reserve banking system.
This chamber, regardless of who has been in office, have then had to face the unenviable choice between letting the edifice of crony capitalism come crashing down with calamitous consequences for the rest of us, or printing off more real money to shore up this Ponzi scheme and the people who built it, and in doing so devalue our currency to keep the pyramid afloat.
Now, did you just hear a British MP describe the global monetary system as, in the same sentence, a Ponzi and a pyramid scheme? Because I did. And the reason I did is because it is a fact. So we have Mr. Madoff, the world's biggest con man, we are led to believe, and we have a British MP, Douglas Carswell, in agreement that we have a global Ponzi scheme at work. And we do. Now, carry on, because this impacts your sovereignty and independence entirely. Now, I'm questioning and talking out against the SNP. Therefore, that must make me a unionist, right? I mean, whatever language we speak, if we agree with someone who disagrees with you or holds a certain belief, then we automatically must hold that same belief. That's how people think. Well, I'm afraid that is wrong. Now let us turn to Captain Henry Kirby, an MP in the 1960s and early 70s, and his early day motion in December 1964, and his questioning of the Chancellor of the Exchequer regarding the issue of UK currency based on no debt, no interest. Now, I do hope that in reading this, your chin is now on the floor. The government, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, is basically saying to Mr. Kirby, it is not government policy to eliminate the national debt. Now, whereas Captain Kirby actually gets an answer to his previous question, which is an incredible answer, what you see here is he simply gets no. He asks the Chancellor whether he will take steps to ensure that all government financial requirements be provided by, therefore currency, be provided free of debt and interest by the Bank of England. For there's no need to borrow our money. And Mr. Diamond, as you can see, simply says no. That's it. No. What does that mean? I seriously hope you people understand this. Now the following is Captain Kirby's EDM, the actual EDM, which you can pause and read at your leisure, but it is attachment 1 on the email I've sent you. It includes not only the EDM itself, but Captain Kirby's comments to the EDM. Now here's just one of those comments, and consider this, and consider it very simply, because it is very simple. Who is in control, the creditor or the debtor? Who owns your house? If you don't pay your mortgage, who takes that house away? The government borrows money, so who's in control, the government or those private individuals who they borrow the money from? Therefore, there is no sovereignty. And there is no sovereignty because as these private individuals, these private interests, lend money to our government, and our government issues this money to us, and we pay the tax associated with our earnings on it, these same private individuals, bankers, central banks, associated with the EU, associated with the IMF, they control our entire national destiny. They control our economy, they control the privatizations, and there is a spate of privatizations, a spate of sell-offs. This country, the UK, is in bankruptcy, as will be Scotland. There will be no difference. We will still be in hock to the bankers, and the IMF and the EU will still control our legislation, because we must put in the legislation that they wish to see, because they control the nation and the government. Now, Salmond knows this, and he knows, and he will not issue a Scottish sovereign currency. He will still go and borrow, as every country in the world does, except for 1 or 2 who happen to be targeted by us as rogue nations. He will serve the powers that be. He will serve the banking interests, okay? And it will make no difference whether we have ejected ourselves from Westminster, because the entire legislation of the European Union members, and Scotland will be one, is controlled by the EU, just as all UK law today is controlled and put in place by EU legislation. So let's get real and let's get smart here. We have an entire UK, we have an entire world talking austerity because bankers have been bailed out. They caused the problem. We know that. Now, these same bankers own and control our governments. The austerity measures are being put in to bail out, to pay back these bankers. That is the whole reason for the austerity measures. The austerity measures are because of the borrowing of governments from these banks. Yet, just wait for it, you will hear Ben Bernanke of the Federal Reserve System being put in a corner and being checkmated, and the only word he can say in answer to this question is yes. And that is the fundamental issue. There is no need for a national debt, none whatsoever.
To back them up.
Although I would say we had a currency for many parts of our history without any federal debt.
When was that?
Under the Jackson administration.
So this was before the Civil War. This was
Right.
This was during the period of where individual banks issued currency. We didn't have a national currency.
I just might say that it's possible for a country to have a currency without a $1 trillion debt.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Now, do you recognize a man who's just seen a ghost? Who's just seen a genie come right out of a bottle, and he's trying to figure out a way in which he can stuff that genie back in the bottle? That is what you see before you with Ben Bernanke here. He knows that governments need not borrow money. They need not issue currency at debt and interest and therefore try and accrue that money back through taxation of the public. He knows this, and he's checkmated. He does not know where to turn. He does not know how to answer. The only answer he can give to that question is yes. Salmond knows this, Cameron knows this, Obama knows this, the entire lot of them know it, but why won't they tell us? Well, there's very good reason for it, but it's too much to go into for now. Now let's turn to another aspect of this, and another aspect of Mr. Salmond's deception of the Scottish public. Why is Mr. Salmond now so much of a royalist? Why does he want the monarchy as a part of the Scottish system? Well, I'll tell you why. Because it is Her Majesty's armed forces. It is Her Majesty's government. It is Her Majesty's loyal opposition. It is Her Majesty's courts, judiciary, police. It is Her Majesty's seabed. Yes, you heard that right. It's Her Majesty's seabed, Her Majesty's UK continental shelf, and it is Her Majesty's oil. Let me explain that. Why are we investing in offshore wind farms? Well, this is the reason. Because the Queen, or more correctly, because it should not be her personally, because she is a constitutional monarch, therefore she holds the office of the monarch, like a CEO holds the office of CEO in a company. That is exactly how it should be under the British Constitution. But she has interpreted it, as have the entire establishment, that she personally owns the seabed. Now the interesting thing is that all the wind farms, all the investment are being deployed, or most of them, on her seabed. And as you can see here, she profits from it. She owns it. She gets the royalties from it. But you see, there's more to it than that, because this is the UK continental shelf. And the UK continental shelf seabed, the seabed is owned by the Queen. And this is why you have Mr. Salmond now becoming a royalist. Whether he is or whether he isn't really doesn't matter. He needs the royals, or the royals are saying, you will not become independent, and they aren't anyhow. We wouldn't anyhow, because someone is telling us whether we can be independent or not. You will not become independent unless you manage the Crown estate the way Her Majesty wishes it to be managed. And I own the seabed. I have the rights, the entitlements of the seabed, and all the minerals, therefore, the mineral rights, which means the oil underneath the seabed. The Queen owns British oil. Okay? She doesn't own the companies. That is not what I'm saying. She owns the mineral rights. She decides who can drill, where they can drill, etc. And this is why Mr. Salmond and your SNP are bringing the Queen along. That is the only reason. Now, if you find it hard to believe and somewhat of a stretch that I suggest that the Queen owns the rights to all the oil in the UK, then I suggest you go onto the UK Parliament website. I suggest you find this document and you read it. And then, lastly, I suggest you consider why it is that the UK exports all its oil and imports its needs in oil.